Some things go naturally together. Fish and chips, pizza and beer, peanut butter and jelly, and the Toronto Maple Leafs, and preseason injuries for the Montreal Canadiens. Let's talk some puck. Hey gang, Kosta here from Puck Talk Montreal. Thanking you as always for your support for the channel. Don't forget, like the videos, subscribe if you want to, and hit that notification bell so that you get all the latest and greatest from our channel. And as we get latest and greatest, let's talk about our sponsor, Instacustoms. They're your number one destination for custom apparel printing. They're the highest rated print shop in Canada with over 3,000 Google reviews at a 4.9 star rating, and they were nominated for the 2024 Canadian Business Choice Award. They print on all your favorite clothing, t-shirts, hoodies, polos, plus hats, beanies, tote bags, even coffee and travel mugs. And yes, they even offer embroidery. Most orders are printed and shipped the very same day, and large orders in less than 3 days with free shipping. Open 7 days a week, they're located downtown on Stanley Street. Easy to remember because it ties in with the Canadiens' ultimate goal of winning the Stanley Cup. So whether it's for yourself, a loved one, or your business, trust Instacustoms. Visit us in person or order online at instacustoms.com. Now that we got that little piece of business out of the way, let's talk a little bit about the injury bug and the Montreal Canadiens. I know I said it in jest, but it's a serious problem in the preseason for the Habs, right? They always seem to get one or two guys injured. In this case, it's three, starting with Noah Dobson and Caden Gooley. Now, in their case, it's a groin injury. And so a groin injury can be very mild, it can be bad, or it can be extremely bad. There's varying levels of it. In the case of Gooley and Dobson was taken off the ice as a precaution in the second period so they wouldn't aggravate his groin. Gooley didn't start the game yesterday. One, people think because of the fact that he was late for practice, and two, because he's got a groin strain. Now, here's the thing. How do you deal with a groin injury? Well, you ice it, you rest, you do very minimal exercises and stretching, and that's it. You get back on the ice after 2 or 3 days of non-movement, you work it in slowly, and you get back to work. Now, here, the other thing that you need to realize about a groin injury, it has nothing to do with your opponent. It has to do with your preparation. Here's where, you're going to think that Marty St. Louis might be to blame a little bit, but he's not. In the sense that most of the time when players have groin injuries, it's because they've overexerted themselves. Either they're fatigued or they're working too hard, they haven't stretched, whatever the case is. I don't think that's the case here with Dobson and Gooley. Gooley, as we know, skated all summer long in Kelowna along with Kirby Dach as they prepared for the season. Dach, of course, rehabilitating his knee. Gooley just staying in shape so he's ready for the preseason. And lo and behold, here he is. Groin injury. Now, there's a lot of other factors that go into it too. Your skating style can be one of them. If you're a goalie, you're prone to get groin injuries a hell of a lot more than a skater. Ask Dominic Hasek about that. And just overall, you avoid groin injuries by stretching properly, by warming up properly, and not overexerting yourself. That can happen in the preseason when you're working hard. You don't realize it as an athlete because you figure, hey, I've had all summer, I should be fine, let's go. But you still need to warm up like a normal human being. You can't exactly not warm up so that you get on the ice and you work, right? Your muscles are warm, you get that last lactic acid flowing, and you're ready. Whether or not that's the case with either Dobson or Gooley, who knows? But at the end of the day, groin injuries are a normal occurrence in the preseason for every team, not just the Canadiens. And they're not major injuries. So let's back off a little bit. They say normally it takes about 4 weeks to come back from a groin injury. Sometimes it can be earlier depending on the severity of it. Let's see what happens. According to what I've heard, they were taken off the ice precautionary because they felt a little bit of a twinge in their groin. So that's why they didn't play. That's why Gooley didn't play, and that's why Dobson came off the ice as quickly as he did. Then we get to David Reinbacher. Reinbacher, of course, got hit in the hand and broke his medial bone in his hand. So what do you do at that point if you're the Montreal Canadiens? It's a freak accident. It's luck. Or is it? First, let's listen to Lane Hutson after he spoke to Reinbacher and how disappointed Reinbacher is with this injury?
Yeah, I mean, I think he was taking positive strides. Obviously you want to stay healthy and, play and show what you can do. And it's just, a bad bounce, and those things happen. But I think he's as hungry as ever and, motivated to come back even better.
Now, you could say that it's a bad bounce and those things happen as Hudson did, but there's more to it than that. It's equipment failure, pure and simple. And not necessarily because the gloves that a player wears don't do what they're supposed to, but rather they choose to wear gloves that don't protect them as well as they should. I have examples, by the way. This is a new style glove. It was made by Easton a few years ago. But as you can see, it's got very short cuffs, so they don't really protect your wrist. And the profile along the side here where your knuckles are is very small. So the amount of protection that you have, it's hard foam, doesn't really protect you as much as it should. And when you put it on your hand, as is the example here, if I apply my wrist, you can see that my wrist is exposed. So if I'm holding my stick, as Reinbacher would, and the shot comes in, where do I get it? Right here. That's how he broke his bone. The puck got in there, and away we go. So this glove, garbage. This is my glove from Junior. This is an old school gauntlet. It is not one of these new school gloves that is made for flexibility and pliability and the ability to be able to move around. You could still move in this. I bought this, number one, because the cuffs, which were this high before when I played when I was younger, were relatively long and protected my wrist. Okay? They're also extremely thick, right? So that they provide a hell of a lot of protection. Now, the levels are not as rigid so that you have some pliability in the glove. Also, if I put this on my wrist, you'll see that even if I apply it, there's no way for the puck to get in there because the cuffs are long enough to protect me. I know the glove is big, right? This is a 15-inch glove. The other one I showed you is a 13-inch because it belonged to my daughter. But still, the fact that the cuffs are much longer here will protect my hand much better than the other glove would. But players don't want to wear these because they find them heavy. They're not heavy, okay? They're not as heavy, or they're heavier than the other glove, but the other glove also doesn't provide as much protection. So therein lies the problem. It's not necessarily that the equipment is failing. It's the choice of the equipment that the player makes that's failing. Now, I myself used to be a guy that killed penalties, right? I played offensively, leading scorer on my junior AA team along with my best friend Tasso, who decided to move to Greece, and I don't see him as often anymore, but that's another story for another day. But we played together on the same line. And the thing was, we read off each other very, very well. Tasso was the guy who was the finesse guy. I was the finisher and a little bit of the rough guy too. I'd protect Tasso because he couldn't fight for a lick. But the thing about my equipment was I wore a shoulder pads with a full chest protector because I would block shots, and I wore thicker shin guards than Tasso did because of the fact that I would go down and block shots when I was killing penalties. And I would kill them a la Guy Carbonneau, where I would slide down on the ice and I would put my legs out to try to block the puck. I wouldn't stand up straight because by taking the bottom away, your goalie would be able to see the puck coming over my legs and make the save, which is something that defensemen just don't do anymore, or forwards. And that's a story for another day anyway. But even though I had very thick equipment and my choices were fantastic, I still got injured. I went down to block a shot in one game against St. Henry. The shot ricocheted off the cup of my shin guard, which was over my knee, up underneath my chest protector, and broke two of my ribs. I finished the game, was spitting up blood the entire game, but I still got injured despite the fact that I had the most protective equipment a forward could have gotten at that time. There's some things you just can't avoid, right? But if you're a player like Reinbacher who plays defense, where oftentimes you're found in the middle of the shooting lane and you need to block a shot, or you need to make sure that you have enough protection that if a shot does hit you, it won't break your hands, you wear equipment that's built for it. not these flimsy little gloves that they make for forwards. It's okay for forwards to wear them if somebody, for example, like an Ivan Demidov, decides to, wear a thinner glove so that he has more flexibility to stick handle. But I'd like to see how it protects him when somebody slashes him across the wrists. There's always that possibility, right? We've seen players take it right behind the hand, right where the wrist is unprotected when they wear the wrong kind of glove. It's an occupational hazard and it's a risk. There's no other way to put it. But there are some things that aren't occupational hazards. They're choices. For example, Brendan Gallagher decided to start wearing a neck guard after he saw what happened to Yuri Slafkovsky. Slafkovsky, of course, getting cut by the skate of Christian Dvorak on the lower part of his jaw, but it just missed that neck area. And this is what Gallagher had to say about wearing it.
For whatever reason, I don't know, it just seems to be happening a little more. You kind of see it. And I think when that stuff's made available to you, and they do a good job. I mean, it's comfortable, it's easy to wear. So I think you'll start to see more and more guys, make that adjustment and move to it. So it's not something you want to see.
There used to be a time where neck guards were like hard inner tubes that were thick, and players hated wearing them. Now, it's like wearing a bloody turtleneck. I think it's even more comfortable than the turtleneck Thomas Plekanec used to wear. But there are some injuries, like I said, you just can't avoid. Even if you wear a mouth guard. Just ask Clerman. I don't know if his teeth are small or whether he lost a few of his chiclets. But holy hell did he look bad after he got boarded by Michael Pezzetta. And those are things that you just can't protect yourself from, right? Even if you're wearing a mouth guard, your face goes into the boards push up against your teeth. I don't care if you're wearing a thick mouth guard or what have you. The pressure that's put up against your face, it's going to break your teeth occasionally. I don't know whether or not Clerman wore a mouth guard, but he should have, if you get my drift. So a lot of these injuries are avoidable. Some of them, like the Paré hit on Line A last year, was not, right? The injury that happened to Reinbacher last season with his knee was a bit of a fluke in the way he fell on the ice. There's all these little factors that go in. But at the end of the day, if players protect themselves with the right equipment, 90% of the time, a lot of these injuries are going to be avoided. Right? Some guys, look at Slafkovsky. He had the stitches in his cheek, decided to wear a full face guard. Although he hated it, he did what he needed to do to protect himself. He's going to go back to the half visor once the stitches come out, but hey, nobody's perfect, right? But injuries are injuries. It's not a bug. It's the preseason. They're going to happen. You're going to have strained groins. You're going to have guys with lower back pain. There's all kinds of things that are going to come up. So there's no reason to panic. Reinbacher, 4 weeks, not the end of the world. He's going to end up going to the Rocket. So that's fine. And given the way he played, he wasn't, forcing the Canadiens to really bring him up to Montreal. I wanted to see that because I wanted to see him play defensively with the big club, but hey, it didn't happen. Instead, you've got a Arbor Xhekaj who's looked great on defense so far. I'm really happy about that. I was worried in a sense. So he's going to be there, and Strubl's going to be there, and we're going to be fine with 7 defensemen. At the end of the day, Reinbacher is going to get healthy, and he's going to be a call-up for the Habs if they need somebody in case of injury. And that's a lot better place to be in than he was last year, where he had to miss most of the year because of his knee. That being said, aren't you tired of the Canadiens getting injured against the Leafs? Is it just coincidence that it's always the same bloody team? No. It's the league deciding to save money on traveling. And talking about saving money, let's talk about our other sponsor, cheapesttshirts.ca. Proudly Canadian and trusted by thousands of customers, cheapesttshirts.ca delivers unbeatable value. You'll always get the lowest prices, plus same-day shipping, even next-day delivery, so your order arrives fast. With thousands of products and more than 36 trusted brands like Gildan, jerseys, and American Apparel, the selection is unmatched. Whether you're shopping for everyday clothing, tote bags, aprons, and so much more, you'll find it all in one place. Cheapesttshirts.ca is the go-to source for businesses, events, apparel printing companies, and resellers, or people just wanting the best deals on everyday clothing. Plus, enjoy free shipping on large orders and a simple, easy-to-use website that makes ordering online a breeze. Get the cheapest deals in Canada today at cheapesttshirts.ca. So here's the thing. In a lot of circumstances, the NHL builds their preseason schedule to play teams that are really close to each other. Like, you're not going to see the LA Kings travel to Montreal to take on the Canadiens in the preseason. It just doesn't make economic sense. But instead, you end up playing teams that you see 4 times out of the year, like an Ottawa Senators team or Toronto Maple Leafs. Sure, you get the occasional Flyers and Pittsburgh Penguins because they're close as well. But whatever happened to the days where the Canadiens could play a couple of games against the Bruins or a couple of games against the New York Rangers? It's not that far away and the travel's not that expensive. So what's the deal here? Are you just trying to save a buck? Every year, it seems, it's the Toronto Maple Leafs, the Ottawa Senators, and a couple of teams from the old Patrick division, whether it's Chicago or anybody else. And I'm getting tired of it. You want to see a little bit of variety, right? I'm not talking about teams from the Sun Belt coming up to Montreal. There's a lot of teams that are in and around the Montreal area. You've got Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, you've got Boston, the Rangers, the Islanders, Toronto, Ottawa, even Winnipeg for that matter. Why the hell would you not bring them in for a preseason game? A team like Winnipeg that you see only twice a year, that'd be a hell of a draw for somebody in Montreal to see. You know, how often do you get to see Connor Hellebuck or somebody else from the Winnipeg Jets, like Mark Scheifele, who we hate, but still, or Kyle Connor? You're looking at guys all the time, right? So every year, it's Austin Matthews. Every year, it's William Nylander. Every year, it's the Toronto Maple Leafs. Every year, it's Tim Stützle. You get where I'm going with this. The league needs to show a little bit of variety. Now, next year, they're shortening up the preseason, so the point could be very moot at that point. But the thing is, don't give me 2 games against Toronto and 2 games against the Ottawa Senators next year. I'm going to throw something at you. Show me something different. Give me a Rangers-Islanders game, right? The Rangers come to Montreal. The Islanders come to Montreal. Montreal goes to the Rangers. Montreal goes to the Islanders. Ooh, that's a stretch. That's a really expensive trip. No, it's not. For the amount of money that these teams make, the ability to do this in the preseason is paramount. Not just for the Canadiens, but imagine the Rangers and the Islanders seeing the Canadiens during the preseason instead of seeing the same teams over and over again. I don't get it. You know, even on the West Coast now, you've got a little bit of variety. In the North, you've got the Avalanche, the Kraken, you've got the Vancouver Canucks, the Calgary Flames. So, there's a little bit of variety. But, everywhere else, the Sun Belt is too far. The Hurricanes are going to play the Florida Panthers, and the Florida Panthers are going to play the Tampa Bay Lightning, and you have teams that are clustered, right? Chicago's going to play Winnipeg. Minnesota's going to play Winnipeg. Minnesota's going to play Chicago. Your preseason schedule is too easy. Why not send Minnesota over to, I don't know, maybe Calgary? Maybe the Canucks can go to Winnipeg. We never see it. So instead of trying to save some money, make the preseason worth it. Because if you're seeing the same teams over and over again in the preseason, how is that supposed to help your teams prepare for the regular season? 2 games against the Leafs and 2 games against the Senators may prepare me on a physical level, but from a play standpoint, what does it change for me? Both teams play a similar style. They try to generate offense, and they try to be good in their own zone. They're not overly physical. Well, if I play a game against the Winnipeg Jets are a much more physical team than the Toronto Maple Leafs or the Ottawa Senators. So that would prepare me for teams like the St. Louis Blues or the LA Kings or the Boston Bruins, or you get where I'm going with this. There needs to be variety in the games that are played in the preseason in order to prepare teams properly, right? We saw a little bit of physicality yesterday in the Toronto Maple Leafs game. Why? Because the Leafs put their AHL team on the ice. So, what did it do? Nothing. As far as preparing the team. The Canadiens played poorly. There's no 2 ways about it. The game was a complete wash. But just the idea of always playing the same teams over and over again makes me sick to my stomach. I want to see variety, even in the preseason. I'd rather go to a game to watch the Rangers come in or the Islanders than to keep going in the preseason to watch Toronto and watch Ottawa and just keep going and going and going. Variety, man. It's what makes life interesting. And if there's no variety in the preseason, what's the point of fans going to preseason hockey? It's as simple as that. Now, another thing I wanted to touch on is something that came up from mainstream media, particularly from the French side. And of course, we shouldn't be surprised that it does come from that side, given what I'm about to tell you. Lane Hutson made a startling discovery at preseason camp. Somebody really impressed him. Here's the clip.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of great players at camp. A couple guys who have looked, pretty good is Bolduc. He surprised me. I played against him in my youth hockey, maybe a couple of games, but seeing him, the way he shoots the puck, the way he moves, he's a good player.
And there you have it. Zach Bolduc impressing Lane Hutson, which prompted one of the guys from mainstream media on the French side who covers the Canadiens to say, well, maybe Bolduc should be moved up to the second line. I'm at a loss for words when it comes to this stuff. Now, if Bolduc earns the spot, I don't have a problem with it at all. But right now, he's played one preseason game. Again, he was on the bumper on the power play. He looked good out there along with Suzuki, Slafkovsky, Caulfield, and Hutson. But it's one game. The guy just came over from St. Louis. He may be looking good at practice. He may be doing all kinds of fun things at practice. But that doesn't mean that it's going to translate to games just yet. Think about it for a minute. You're bringing in a guy like Bolduc and you want to put all the pressure on the world on him. What happens if he comes in and he doesn't perform? Putting him on the second line between Laine and Demidov as an example. What happens? Everybody gets on his ass. Oh, Bolduc, he's not all he's cut out to be, and, he shouldn't be a centerman. Here's the thing about Bolduc that I've mentioned before. Bolduc played center up until his second year of junior. Why did they move him from center when he got to Quebec? Because his production was hot garbage. He wouldn't put up nearly as much points as he did as to when he was moved to the wing by Patrick Roy with the Quebec Ramparts. That's where he realized that he was able to produce better, and it made his game elevate because he could be a little bit more physical. Those last two seasons with Quebec, especially that third season with Quebec, is the reason why he got drafted to the National Hockey League in the first round. Because he showed that he can produce. If he would have stayed at center, I guarantee you he wouldn't have gone in the first round because his production just wasn't there. So why in the world would the Montreal Canadiens want to take a guy who's, even in St. Louis, was productive on the wing and put him at center, where you know that most of the production is going to come from the wing between Demidov and Laine? Honestly. I could see him possibly taking Demidov's place on the wing with Laine, or vice versa, have Laine move down a line and have Bolduc there, or move him around with injury. But to start the season, to put him at center on the second line, it'd be way too much pressure for him to handle. The fact of the matter remains that people keep saying, he's been told to work on his faceoffs. When you've got a winger that comes in and is hovering around 30, 35%, yeah, you're going to tell him to work on his faceoffs. And I think Bolduc was somewhere around 40% last season in the faceoff dot. They want him to be better. Ooh, there's a surprise. Do some work at the faceoff dot with Mark Bureau in case you need to take faceoffs. Wow, there's a stretch. Now, sometimes I just wonder, where does this stuff come from? I mean, to the point even today, somebody asked Marty St. Louis, because Jacob Fowler said that he found it really important to get his education. Somebody asked Marty St. Louis how important it was for him to get his education. And Marty, being the gentleman that he is, answered the question very nicely. But at the end of the day, he could have just turned around and said, I'm in the Hall of Fame, right? I really didn't need to have my education, but I got it as a safety net because I didn't know where my career was going to go when I started out. I wasn't drafted. That's not the case for Jake Fowler. Jacob Fowler was drafted by the Montreal Canadiens. Jacob Fowler knew he was coming to the NHL. Jacob Fowler didn't have to finish school, but he decided to for his own benefit. Good on him. Not to say anything about guys that decide to finish their education before they come to the National Hockey League. I think Michael Hage is probably going to do the same thing as well. That all depends. But at the end of the day, asking Marty St. Louis that question, guy who played over 15 years in the National Hockey League. I don't think Marty St. Louis would have to look far to get a job. Honestly, I think he's made enough money. He could probably just retire and not need a job. But that's for Marty to say, not me. But let's get better with the questions, guys. I mean, the Canadiens lose badly against the Leafs AHL team, 7-2, and you're asking about Marty's education and how important it was. There's a lot of other questions to ask, right? Did he bag him? No. I would have come out and said, given how you told us the urgency the guy needed to be able to get out there, why wasn't practice that tough on those guys, especially the guys that played yesterday? If you're going to make guys skate after they lose a scrimmage, why wouldn't you do that for 12 minutes with guys that played like ass the night before? I guess Marty just decided, you know what, I'm going to write this one off. We had a bad start. We didn't get goaltending. We just weren't ready for the game. Let's move forward. And that's his prerogative. Me, as I said in the postgame show, I would have kicked their ass on the ice. I would have made them skate. But that's why he's the coach of the Montreal Canadiens, and I'm doing Puck Talk Montreal. We'll talk soon.